hello, and welcome once again to the Far From Normal Radio Show. I am your host, Jay Moss, and as always, I got my brother over here, Mr. Bud Vino. Bud, how are you doing this evening?
Yo, and yo, my brother from another mother, Jay Money Moss, Tuesday, April 16th, 2019, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Central. Jay, incredible show we have today, right alongside us, as always, Mr. Rev It Up himself, Rev It Up, Randy Davis. How you doing, brother?
Hey, brother, I'm saying goodbye to some friends that are here. I'm glad to be here with you guys. We've been shooting stuff, promoting the show tonight. I'm just glad to be alive. I'm glad to be a part of this show, but this is going to be a tough one on me, just so everybody knows. This is harsh, but it needs to be done.
Yep, absolutely. This is going to be one of those ones where, again, I'm going to share this disclaimer with you because it is very, very important tonight that we share the disclaimer with you, because there really may be some photographs, some information out here. So I know that I may be causing an echo here, but you all can read the disclaimer for yourselves. And it's ultimately important that we did show that disclaimer tonight, because some of the information or some of the photographs could be of a nature that you are or may cause some nightmares, honestly. So if you are not above the age of 13, I would probably recommend you skip this show, or at least watch it with a parent. That would be my suggestion to you. I know I have some young people that do watch the show every once in a while, and so please make sure that if you're watching the show this evening, make sure that your parent is with you. We definitely say parental guidance is suggested on this show. Yeah, and so at this time, without further delay, I definitely want to go ahead and bring in our guest, Donald Brenham. Donald, are you out there with us? Go ahead and turn on your camera and your microphone there. All right, we've got Donald. Donald, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening. We greatly appreciate you, and I'm sure that my co-host would like to thank you as well.
Yeah, Donald, Bud Vino here. I had the pleasure of speaking with you a couple hours before the show, my friend, and I'll tell you, and we got to speak a little bit before the show here a minute ago. You're an amazingly strong man. I think this show is imperative that we get this information out there. I thank you for taking the time. Again, thanks for the conversation earlier. It's going to be a great show, and I look forward to the future here after the show. Thank you.
Yep, Randy?
Yes, thank you very much, Donald. This is going to be a hard one for me. I'm sure it is for you, but brother, I'm very proud of you. Glad that you're here.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and Donald, here's how we're going to hit this story. I want to give you and open the microphone up to you for a lot of the show here. I do have one of your videos that you played the other day. I'm at least going to play part of that video because I think it's ultimately important that people see what you've dealt with. Not just the loss of your daughter, but being accused of being the person behind what this was. And so, Donald, if you could tell us a little bit about your daughter, Mackenzie. First off, before this whole thing took place, what kind of a child was she? What kind of a young lady was she becoming?
Mackenzie was a really a spirit child. Where most daughters, when I first got custody of my 3 children, and we went and I got a house, and my daughter, most girls want, things in their room, girly or whatever. And my daughter wasn't that way. My daughter actually had me paint her walls purple and pink. She collected angels. She collected Jesus's little statues. She had me order her the whole Bible, children book collection. And that's what my daughter had. And my daughter was, she was the type that I don't care how mad you were, how hurt you were, or whatever. She always put a smile on everybody's face. My daughter, when she went to stay with her mom, She would still come to my work. She'd call me every night, tell me that she loved me. We would do the "Now You Lay Me Down to Sleep" prayer, which is on her headstone. That was her favorite prayer. But she would come to my work, get money from me. And I thought, well, you know, why she needed all this money. And then I found out after my daughter passed away that she was actually taking money to school and giving it to kids that couldn't afford lunches. And when she passed away, these kids did a poster at the school and they put quarters and all that on this poster to pay her back.
Wow. Wow. What a child. First off, we're talking about a child who had a heart of gold. Then we're talking about this this family court system, honestly, and the tyranny that goes on really within the family court system. You and your ex had obviously gone through that whole issue, and Mackenzie was staying with your ex, correct?
Yeah, right.
And then with also a new boyfriend.
Yes.
Okay. So when we're talking about all of this, now we're getting into the situation of the event that took place. So the event takes place and there's a fire in the home.
Right.
Okay. So how long was it before the fire department came to the home?
When I looked at the sheriff's report, the phone call came in at 1:45 in the morning, but the dispatcher didn't dispatch anybody until 1:51 before they even dispatched somebody to the scene. And the fire department arrived there at 1:59, I think is when the first fire truck arrived.
So basically between that time, we've got 15 minutes total. 15 minutes of this blaze of a house fire.
Right.
And in the home at that time was your ex and the boyfriend.
And a dog.
Okay. So then we've got your daughter, who I'm assuming this was in an upstairs bedroom where she was staying.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so we've got this house fire. We've got the dealings that are going on with it. 15 minutes before the dispatcher gets somebody out there to start fighting the fire here. And by that time, the house is completely ablaze. And when they arrive on the scene, what is it that's keeping the firefighters from getting to the fire?
Actually, it was Kenny, which is the boyfriend, and the mother, Marianne. It was their red pickup truck sitting in the middle of the road with the door open, keys in the ignition, and the truck was running.
So they pull the truck out of the drive, stick it right in the middle of the street to keep the firefighters from actually fighting the fire that they were there to fight in the first place.
Right. But the story of it is, the mom and the boyfriend story is they were in bed asleep.
Okay. So
how
staying...
can you be in bed asleep if your pickup truck's sitting in the middle of the road with keys in the ignition and running?
Right. And I'm assuming, this is just my assumption, is they pull the truck out of the drive thinking, okay, well, you know, we're going to try and save the truck, get the truck out of the driveway or whatever, but leaving it right in the middle of the street, obviously that's keeping the firefighters from fighting the fire, which is why they're there in the first place, number one.
Right.
Number two is, if you are a mother, your first instinct should be, where is my child? Is that not correct?
Yes.
And knowing that your daughter is upstairs, my first thinking as a mother who cares about their child would be immediately to run up the stairs rather than to back the car out of the driveway. I mean, that's just what I'm thinking, Donald. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Right. It would have been. And there's photographs of the fire afterwards. And I looked at the scene and there was at least 4 ways they could have got my daughter out of that house.
Right. And didn't bother.
No.
From my understanding, from what you said, is that the mother was more worried about a shoe. Is that correct?
Yeah, she actually ran to a neighbor's house. Well, she ran to one neighbor's house and then ran to another one. And when she got to that house, which I talked to that eyewitness, and she said when she knocked on the door and she answered the door, the first thing the mother asked for was a pair of shoes because her feet were cold.
Okay. So her feet were cold, so she's worried about a pair of shoes, but yet her daughter's in the house burning alive.
Yes.
And I've got to think to myself, what is important to these people? Number one. Number two, do you feel like, or maybe suspect, knowing this, that possibly drugs could have been involved?
Yes. When I was going through my all my divorce hearings and custody hearings, before that, prior to that, one of the reasons that me and my ex split up was when my children were born, one of the things that she would do is she would get up in the middle of the night when one of my children were crying in their crib, and she would feed them Benadryl so that it would knock the child out so that she wouldn't have to deal with them and she could sleep until the next morning.
Okay, so, you know, she is, so she's, not only is she possibly taking drugs herself, but she's possibly giving drugs to the daughter. Is that, am I correct on
Yes. Yes, I believe that she did. I believe that that night she had drugged my daughter up with Benadryl or with something. I have found a couple witnesses that the mother had made statements to them while she was out with her boyfriend at bars, that one of the bartenders, I guess, had asked her, "What are you doing with Mackenzie?" And she said, "Well, we couldn't find a babysitter, so the best way we would do it is we would tell her it's time to go to bed. We would give her something to knock her out so that we could go out."
Okay, so now you're into a whole situation of neglect because you're leaving, you're drugging the child so that she can go to sleep, so that way you can go out and party and leave the child at home unattended. And she is, at this time, she is how old, Donald?
8 years old.
8 years old, by herself,
Yeah.
home alone. Then we have the situation of not only has this fire blaze taken out, but we're assuming that possibly, even though the story is that they were in bed asleep, the truck is out in, past the driveway. So it's very possible here that mom and boyfriend could have been out drinking, doing whatever, come home because somebody called or a neighbor probably called them, and they show up.
Right.
That's very, very possible that could have happened.
Right. And I asked the prosecutor of that question too. And then but there was some, when you heard all the stories you hear from the mother and the boyfriend, the thing with that is if you were coming home to the fire, if there's some audio that's on my page that I play where I discuss the fire with my ex-wife, and she said that her boyfriend was in underwear. So that's what I was saying. When she describes what they were wearing, it doesn't match up with them coming from somewhere.
Okay.
And then, like I said, the Fayette County Sheriff's Office tried to use that too. When I brought up the truck, because to me, the truck's important. It's part of the crime scene. But they never roped it off. They moved the truck. They never searched the truck. They never took it for evidence. So they even allowed them to come back and get the truck and go home, the mom and the boyfriend in it. But my discrepancy with the pickup truck and her story is if you were coming home and you got out, you wouldn't be in underwear, you wouldn't be in your pajamas.
Right.
You wouldn't have those shoes on. So that tells me, either somebody else was in the truck and maybe they were taking things from the house before they set it on fire. To, some people like to collect certain things of a person they're going to kill, or memories that they don't want destroyed that belongs to them that were sentimental. So they were removing it. And then the person that actually set the fire set it too fast, before they got back to get more stuff. I mean, there's a lot there. It's the point that if the law enforcement would have done their job, there might have been answers inside that truck.
Right. And Donald, where were you at the time that this whole fire took place?
I was at work, and then I came home from work, and I was with my wife when I got the phone call from the mother, and then I went back to my work, and that's where the law found me. It was at my work.
Okay. So you're at work, you hear this, you come home, and so you decide to go back to work. Is that correct? Or
well, what happened was I came home, and as me and my wife were together, the phone rang, and it was my ex-wife on the phone, and she was calm, and her exact words were, "My house is on fire," and I said, "Okay, where's my daughter?" And she said, "No, my house is on fire, and Mackenzie's still in there." And this is at a neighbor's house across the street.
So she's immediately calling you. Was it your, gut instinct to go down there, or?
Yeah. And then when I left my house, I was headed there. I ran out of gas in the town that we live in. We only have one gas station that's open. By the time I got back to that gas station to get gas, I figured, I'm not going to make it there. So I went back to my work. And then I called the sheriff's office. And when I was on the phone with the sheriff's office, it wasn't their job, but the dispatcher just point out, said, "Nah, she's dead." And that's when I collapsed on the phone.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, we greatly appreciate that, dispatcher, because
Right.
Honestly, that's the most horrible news that you can ever tell anyone is that their son or daughter has passed away.
They didn't even say it that way. They didn't even say pass away. It was a guy. He actually said, "Nope, she's dead." And I passed out. My boss and one of my bartenders were giving me water. And when I sat me up, as I got up, here comes 7 police officers in my work to tell me she was dead, but she was I already knew.
Right. And so the town that you live in from her is approximately how far away?
I'm only like 15 minutes from where my daughter was.
Okay. So, 15 minutes away. So we're at least talking 15, 20 miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah, just absolutely atrocious right there. But then not only that, but then we're coming to the fact that now the police are accusing you.
Yeah. Well, I want to say something first, though.
Sure.
I want everyone to know, though, that the boyfriend was a 12-year volunteer fireman.
All right. So he's a volunteer firefighter, but he's not fighting the fire at where he lives.
No. Anyway. He didn't even attempt to save her. He lied about trying to save her. He literally got caught in a lie saying that he tried to save her.
Absolutely horrid.
And the reason was his lie to the sheriff was he didn't want the town to look down on him because he was a firefighter, and it would look bad on him. He wouldn't look like a hero if he didn't try to save her, and everybody knew that.
Well, I mean, why didn't he try to save her? That's my main thing. I mean, honestly, if you're a volunteer firefighter, if the fire's ablaze in your own home, why are you not running in to save whoever's in there?
Actually, the fire station was only 2 houses away.
So the fire station is 2 houses away, but it took 15 minutes to get there.
Well, that's a volunteer fire department.
I'm still
I know.
perplexed, though. I'm still perplexed. Yeah, that literally is what? How 100 feet away?
I actually walked from I did a video at the crime scene, and I actually went to the red phone that's on the building that when you pick it up, it automatically dials 911. And I actually picked it up from that phone to my daughter's house. I walked, not run. I walked in 1 minute and 43 seconds.
1 minute and 43 seconds. So we're really talking about more like 60, 70 feet at least. But I mean, it's a little ways, but still, honestly, it shouldn't take 15 minutes to get there.
And him being a firefighter, he should have known there was a 911 phone on that building. And it's an actually brand new building. It was actually built a year before my daughter's death.
Wow. So I want to do this because I know that you've been accused in this, and I know that you go through this story quite a bit here. So I'm going to play this video here for you real quick. Now, again, before I do this, if there are children in the room, you may want to keep the phone, the computer away from them at this particular time. Okay. All right. So watch this with understanding that we have to show some of these pictures in order to tell this story. All right.
But what I understand is the scene changed, and that's when they got suspicious, and then called us, Dr. Gay, and asked if we did the swaps, and we said no, and that's when he sent her back.
Now, I saw where you guys said you swabbed her you swabbed the vagina area, the buttocks area, and the mouth.
Yeah.
And that was sealed in an envelope and sent to wherever it went, to your lab or whatever.
Yeah.
So that potential DNA came from one of those 3 areas.
Yeah.
And that was after you got more information about Mackenzie, and that's why she was sent back to you all, and then that's when you did the swabbing.
We didn't get what we... State County, someone decided it was a case of concern, and that's when Dr. Gay called us and asked if we already do swabs, and we said no. And he sent her back. We didn't do any investigation and got more information. They did. Somewhere in Fayette County, somebody got more concerned about the case.
Right.
Which could be, and that's when Gay called us and asked if we had done them. And because he had related no... I think when the case first came in, they had concerns, but they weren't related to us. So we thought it was nothing more than a accidental fire.
Right.
When he called back he called back to make sure we had done the swabs. That's when he said, "Oh no, there's concerns here." And then we said, "Well, you got to send her back then because we weren't aware of concerns."
Right. Which is what the sheriff told me that was his error, was he shouldn't have listened to, his exact words was, I shouldn't have listened to Dr. Gay, and that was my fault. We sent her as an accidental fire.
We have a partial profile from the Y chromosome, which is the male. Male. What differentiates men from women is the 23rd chromosome, and it's either a Y chromosome, which is men, or well, it's either an X and a Y, which makes a man, or it's an X and an X, which makes a woman.
Okay. And then because there wasn't enough.
Because it's not, so there's 23 chromosomes. The other 22 are what we typically use to differentiate individuals. So if we have a criminal and we get their blood, we do a profile that breaks down those 22 chromosomes. It excludes, it does not look at the X and Y.
And because you don't have that, then
because we just have the Y, we don't have the other 22. There's nothing in the computer to compare it to.
so that's why then it has to be ran individually.
That's why we have to look at individual. We have to see individual men and then compare their Y chromosome to what we have.
So in other words, like let's say a brother of a brother goes in and he says, hey, I want to give my DNA, and it would not, you would be able to run his as far as with the Y part.
Correct.
But it would not, would it still determine, let's say, would it be able to come back and say there's a match, but it's not, it's within the family?
We cannot do that with just a Y chromosome.
Can't do that.
We can say it is this individual or it's not this individual. We can't say it's part of the family or not.
Right. So pretty much, I mean, it's not a bad thing, because pretty much if somebody hits that, there is no other explanation for it.
Correct. If we get a match, they get a sample from an individual and we say it hits this DNA match, they are now the person that deposited that DNA.
Right.
It has to be explained, for whatever reason, they have to, I don't know, there is an explanation, but that will be who did it.
Right.
Short of an artifact now.
Right. Right.
But
So it's actually a little more powerful, because it's only the Y, and that Y male, for it to match that, it would be dead on. I mean, there's no other, because you'd have to run them individually, so that means, there's no way. I mean, if they hit, it hits, it's them.
If it hits, it hits, correct. Now, the only drawback with what we have is, instead of, the other 22 chromosomes, you get much more powerful, by meaning, if I hit, I could have 50 markers on the other 22 chromosomes, and if I get 49 of them, I know to 1 billionth of a percentage you're the person.
Right.
Now, in this case, we only have a very small amount of the Y chromosome. If it hits, it hits. It's not like it's not going to be that person.
Right.
But the differentiating power is actually less.
Right.
So we'll come in and say, okay, it's 1 in a million.
Right.
It's still, it's still that person. There's not,
Right.
It's just not as powerful statistically, but we're still talking, and then, there's no way to argue against it. The only argument someone would have is it's artifactual. that somehow it's contamination or something like that.
Right. So, but as far as like a brother, you know how sometimes you can take a brother and they'll say, hey, he partially hit, but that means he ain't the one. That means, it's within that family of males.
Unless it's an identical twin, we would be able to differentiate it.
Right. Okay, now I understand that.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not in a CODIS, because it's not an actual full DNA profile. It's a partial DNA profile.
Right.
So that's why it was never in there in CODIS. So now, for them to say, well, Donald Brenham, we ran your DNA in the CODIS, they had to lie to me because you couldn't.
Your DNA should not have been run in a CODIS against for this. We didn't do it.
No, I know that. No. I know that. That's what I was told. That's just what I was told. That it was ran in database, which is CODIS. And that's why I was organized, like, okay, you ran mine, which I understood why they came and got mine, because I was willing to give mine, you know what I'm saying? I'm the father, and they needed my numbers anyways.
Now, if they ran you against CODIS, someone else, there's no reason to do that. Unless they're fixing for you on other crimes, there's no reason to do that, but we don't do that. We just compared you to the sample we have.
Now, let me ask you, do you have that sample, or does BCI have that sample?
Your sample?
No, my daughter's sample.
We have it.
You all have it?
Yes. Now, they may have it. I don't...
See, I was told BCI had it.
BCI may have... We have the profile, so we have...
Okay.
The printout, we have... Once we have a profile, I don't know if they came and got if they came and got the swab and they're redoing it, but we will always have, the results.
Right, the results.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if we still have the swab or not. I could imagine that it's now a BCI, so they have something to compare to.
Right.
But we would have just given them the profile too, but they may have wanted to rerun it or something.
Right. Okay. So, well, that's good to know that, if somebody does run they do run their DNA and it hits, then it's that person. So.
It's that person.
And the thing of it is, this is my little girl. And you gotta understand that. This is my daughter. She's 8 years old. Shouldn't be no male's DNA around her.
I'm not arguing the point. You're correct.
Thing of it is, when my daughter was sent to Montgomery County, she was sent there as an accidental. And that shouldn't have never happened. And then there was a lack of communication between our county and their county. And like I said in the last one, he explained that where they washed her and all that stuff and sent her back. So when they did get the phone call and they said, wait a minute, did you run, we need this done on her. There's a reason why. And he said, no, we already sent her back. And they were like, no, we need to send her back because this is a crime. And if you remember when I talked to him the last time and I played that for everybody, I asked him, that they're supposed to treat every fire with a fatality in it as an arson and a homicide first, then accidental. And he agreed. That's not what happened with McKenzie. So when McKenzie got sent there was some things they didn't do. They sent her back, and then when she came back, they couldn't still do it because they treated her as a patient, more or less. In 2009, I was cleared. I was cleared by...
Okay, we're going to cut it off there for a little bit here because it is a rather long video, but I think it's very, very important that we get to some of this information that's about to come up, okay? We have this fire, all right, and the fire takes place. Now, your daughter, Mackenzie, perishes in the fire, and you go through the whole issue of what are we going to do for the funeral? The body needs to be exhumed and all this stuff that needs to be done, okay? So seeing that this was put down as an accidental death, what happened is the coroner, from my understanding, Donald, washed the body. Is this correct?
Right. Usually when an accident happens where somebody passes away, if a small town don't have a morgue, usually they send them to, a bigger city or whatever that has a morgue, and they take them in there. And because Mackenzie went as an accident, they immediately, washed her, prepped her just for the funeral home to, come and pick her up and then take her back. And on their way back to Fayette County, they got a phone call, and they asked the coroner, did he do the rape kit test on my daughter? And he's like, we didn't know to do that. Nobody said anything. Well, we need to get her back to you guys. So they called the funeral home and took her back that day. Within probably 2.5 hours, they took her back. And then that's when they did went into the motion of, this is a homicide. And then that's when they did what they were requested, which was a rape test on my daughter. And there had to be something at the fire that either the fire marshal seen or somebody saw that, put it that direction. And then that's when they did it. And they sent the results to Miami Valley Crime Lab. And on September 23rd, 2006, they came back as a positive male semen that was inside my daughter.
So then you learn at this particular time that your daughter had been raped. Not only
Right.
had she perished in a fire, but quite obviously that this was some type of a evil, maniacal setup to destroy your daughter and her body, and
Yes.
to cover up the real crime, which was sexual molestation.
And one of the audios, with the coroner that I'm talking to there on the which I didn't know. I tape so many conversations, and then I go live with it because I always share my tape. I mean, as soon as I get off the phone, I'm on the live feed and I let people hear exactly what I hear. And I hear it so much that when I hear something, even though I'm talking on the phone, I'm asking questions and stuff. But then when I go and listen to it with the people that are watching my live feed, I catch, other things, and then my mind's focused on that. And in one of the audios, and I had it for probably a good year, I finally caught it at the end of the conversation. He said that this was a unique fire. And I asked him, what do you mean by a unique fire? And he said, when most people set a fire to destroy a body, it's either because they stabbed them or they shot them. They're trying to hide that evidence. Where in my daughter's case, they were hiding the sexual assault.
This is absolutely atrocious. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in here Bud Vino, my co-host here. And Bud, from a perspective of being former law enforcement yourself, I think, we've got a lot of things in this case that have gone wrong. Very, very wrong. So I'm going to open up the floor to you for some questions to Donald as well. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, again, Donald, I'm so sorry for what you and your family and your daughter have experienced. The ineptitude, it looks like, first of all, the chain of custody in terms of evidence, it's deplorable that in a situation, a case like this, that evidence wasn't preserved. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse whatsoever. And right away, as ex-law enforcement, even getting on the scene, common sense would tell me something's up. You've got to be smart about these things. And I would like to know, there had to be something. And I'd love to know, Donald, what it was where they said, okay, there's been an assault here. And why wasn't that something, again, right away, that was looked into? Again, there's no excuse for the ineptitude of how this has been handled.
100%.
Well, and that's the thing, Bud. They when they found this evidence, it was given to the investigators. A lot of your morgues have investigators where, you know, crimes come about. That's the person that actually receives everything from a crime lab. And that investigator read it, gave it to a secretary, and told him to file it. It took 6 years before the coroner was going through my daughter's files and found it and said, oh my God, we have a positive result, DNA, male semen. And that's when he contacted our county. But the thing of it is, I still blame my county because they're the ones that requested it to be done, but they didn't ask for 6 years. They totally ignored it for 6 years. Or did they purposely not want to know?
That's a very good question, Donald, that you have there. And I think from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that 3 people are related to the boyfriend that are currently sheriff's deputies. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
yes. And one of them is deceased. One of them is deceased. And the one that is deceased before he passed away, what all came about this was I watched the show about that John Bonet.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw where they were talking about touch DNA, which came around in 1999, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did that touch DNA on her clothing, they found that it matched the same person that raped the little girl, but did not match the father or the son. And I thought, oh my God, you know, my daughter, they should have her clothes. So I went to the sheriff's office and I said, look, I want touch DNA done on the clothing of my child. And the sheriff's like, we lost the clothes. We don't know where they're at. And I said, I went home and I said, wait a minute, man, you don't just lose something. So that's when I called Montgomery County and I said, hey, I'm the father of Mackenzie Taylor Brenham. I want to know where my daughter's clothes are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Ken Hartsberger, the coroner, got on the phone and he said, Mr. Brenham, they didn't tell you. We destroyed the clothes. They're gone. And the sheriff had to know those clothes were destroyed, not lost. But to keep me, you know, thinking, all right, I'm going to wait till they find them, I was smart enough to go home and say, nah, something ain't right with this picture. I made a phone call. And then when I confronted them, then it was, well, we didn't do it. It was the coroner. Well, they know the coroner's dead. So I can't go to the coroner and say, why did you destroy the clothes? You know, our sheriff's office is blaming the ones now that are dead. The detective, he's dead. The coroner is dead. The uncle or the brother-in-law that's on the sheriff's department that's related to the boyfriend, he's dead. And it's really weird that, you know, here's a 13-year case. You know, it's only 13 years old, and 3 of the main people on this case are gone. The coroner went in for a minor surgery and had a heart attack, supposedly, and died. The detective had a heart attack and then was taking medication while he was at work. And on his way home, he rolled his car suspiciously. And then the other one, the brother-in-law, died of cancer. But they're dead. I can't go to them and ask them anything. And it's easy for the sheriff to blame, like I said, the dead, because you can't question them.
Right. I just think this is absolutely atrocious. And honestly, I'm going to go over to Randy real quick, but I am going to say this. If there are people in that town who work for the sheriff's department, who work for the fire department, we will open a microphone up so that you can explain yourself to Mr. Donald Brenham tonight. Our Zoom meeting is 136-862-601. I think quite frankly, Lucy, you got some explaining to do. Honestly, you destroyed evidence. You've destroyed documentation. You've destroyed phone calls. You destroyed the daughter's clothing so you can get away with this mess. And quite frankly, we have someone who is a loving father and has done everything that he can possibly do to stand up for his daughter. And right now, I want to tell you, Donald, I think that Mackenzie is looking down at you and saying, Dad, you're my hero, honestly. And
well, I know that one of the things,
Absolutely.
yeah.
one
I'm
of the
gonna
things
turn
I
it over
made
to
sure
Randy
that
for
I did.
additional question. There you go.
Okay.
Brother, I don't know. This is hard for me to listen to, and I've got three things that stick out to me that I'm just gonna, blurt them out there, and then you can comment on them. One, and I'll go through all three, and then we can go back over them. But number one, I'm very sorry, and I am, and this hits home because one, I'm wondering about an emancipation of an 8-year-old. I don't understand that. I saw that. And then another thing is, I have friends who are volunteer firefighters. I've had guys who work for me that are volunteer firefighters. And I can tell you, all of them, number one, have they call it their fallout gear, but they have their gear in their vehicle. It's always in their vehicle. So this guy's a volunteer firefighter. I don't know of one who doesn't have his fallout gear in his vehicle. And if his vehicle is parked down the road running, he had to have put it there. And that's where his fallout gear is. So he could have went back in there. The other thing that hits home really bad right now for me is that rape kit. And the reason is there's a couple of people here in North Carolina, and there's big news coming out on this one within the next 2 weeks. But there were two little 4-year-old girls who, at the time I testified on behalf of the grandparents in Lee County, North Carolina, they were 8. So they were the same age. Now, the reason that's important is because it's so similar here because there is a boyfriend of the estranged wife. And this boyfriend, the little girls said that he molested them. So these people, the grandparents and the father, took these little girls to the University of North Carolina. Well, first they took them to a local hospital who examined them and then took them to University of North Carolina, where they did a forensic evaluation with what's called safe nurses who are able to do this. They then did a rape kit. So I understand the swabs, they took their clothing, they did everything. The state of North Carolina then turned around and placed these kids right back, even though there was a diagnosis of sexual abuse on these little girls. They were 4 at the time. Now, what's problematic and how it relates to this one is not only that it's the estranged wife's boyfriend involved, but also that this rape kit, too, has just vanished. Nobody seems to know where it is. And then people involved in it are no longer with the Lee County Sheriff's Department. So see, this is a case that's headed toward where yours did. So I guess my question is, what are your thoughts? I mean, what is this about an emancipation of an 8-year-old? What do you think about the fact, there should have been fallout gear in the guy's truck and he's parked it down the road running from a fire, which firemen don't do. And then how do you deal with situations where you've got to talk about the death of your little girl, DNA, X and Y chromosomes, the CODIS, and all of this other stuff? How in the world do you even hold it together?
First of all, the anticipation thing. I was just told about that actually a few days ago, and then I read it. Like I said, I've got so many documents and stuff I've read, and I miss stuff every time. And usually that's why I do the live feeds and I talk about it and get it out there. And then I go through my paperwork and I find something else, But I had never been to court. My daughter never been to court. She never told that she wanted to divorce the mom and the dad. So that was a lie on the sheriff's report. But also to question the sheriff's report too. On that sheriff's report, it says aggravated arson and aggravated murder. But it does not say aggravated rape. There again, they tried to keep that rape hidden. And I know in one of the stories is actually a news feed. It's on one of my live feeds. The sheriff pretty much says that he's just waiting on the person that did this pretty much come in the sheriff's office sit down in a chair and tell him he did it. That is probably the dumbest sheriff I've ever seen in my life.
Well,
and then on the truck, the pickup truck being there, I just think that was a move to hesitate the fire department from getting there. I believe the mom and the boyfriend wanted my daughter to actually come out as Ashes, not as Mackenzie. And in a lot of my live feeds, you'll hear me say, I'm not a hero. Nobody's a hero on this. The only heroes are the firemen that actually brought my little girl out as my daughter, as Mackenzie. I was still able to see, my child. I was still able to hold my baby that day at the funeral home, kiss her and everything. So those are my heroes. Those are my heroes. And that's the only heroes, was that they went in there risking their lives, knowing that they have family and children at home, to bring out my little girl as Mackenzie and not as Bones or Ashes. Then the other question you was asking, with all the DNA and stuff, the biggest thing is I love my daughter. My daughter was my life. When I caught the mom cheating on me, instead of going out and just more or less cheating on her to pay her back, I said, I'm out of here. I'm going to get my kids. My kids were my number one thing. And I went to court and I fought for my kids. The first time I walked in the courtroom in 1999, I won custody of my kids. But it was shared parenting. But in 2004, I actually got full custody of them. And the mom had to be at a visitation center where she could only see the kids supervised. But I went after my children. My children were my life. And with my little girl, I can always remember, she wasn't really 8 years old because I was a single dad with 3 children. And my little girl helped me. She helped me get her brothers up, get them dressed, get them to school, walk them to their bus stop, help me cook at night. She had to become that mother figure because the mother didn't care. And so my little girl was very close to me. And I remember all the time, she liked to dance and listen to me sing country to her. And she'd come over from school and we would dance in the front room and everything. And so that's what keeps me going. I know the good memories, 8 years of memories with my little girl. I never walked away from my children. I never said, I'll pay child support, whatever. I wanted my children. I always tell people the greatest thing in the world is I can go in my garage and I have a tote in my garage. And in that tote is everything my daughter made in school for 8 years. And I get those memories. I get to sit there. I get to read her poems. I get to see her handprints made on paper. I get that. I get that enjoyment. And I love it. I love it every day. I get mad when I hear fathers that don't want to be around their kids. I get pissed. I really do. You just don't understand what you're missing. Every kid is their own unique way. Every kid does, their own things, and it's the greatest thing in the world. And I'm just grateful that I had the mindset that I didn't walk away from my children. I fought for them. I won. And I beat some of the top lawyers in the state of Ohio. I never had a lawyer. I represented myself. And I went in and I told the truth. I actually had a judge one day ask me, hey, this is a custody hearing. Don't you want a lawyer? And I'll be honest with you. I said, no. That lawyer don't know me. That lawyer don't know my children. What you'll hear out of my mouth will be what I know about my children and how I raised my children and how I love my children. That's the truth, and that's what you need to hear. Not codes, not these codes that lawyers want to use. You need to hear it from the mouth of the father how I feel about my children. And I knew when my custody hearing were coming up, I knew there was going to be questions because I had a girl. I had a daughter. So what I did as a father is I went to a woman's clinic and I learned everything you could think about a female. So that when that judge said, hey, wait a minute, when your daughter reaches the age of 13, this is going to happen. I was like, yeah, okay, I know what to do. Here's what I do. I'm not embarrassed to go buy them. Oh, wow, man, you're pretty. Yeah, okay. I was prepared for them more than they were prepared for me.
Right.
Absolutely. And brother, hang on a second, Jay. A quick couple of questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I'm sure people want to know, Donald, what was this when this happened? Was this on a visitation that the mother had? What was this? What happened? I mean, what was going on that
What
night?
happened?
Number one,
What
and number
happened?
two, what do you think really happened? In other words, what was she doing there?
Okay.
And then who do you really think did this? What do you think really happened?
Okay. In the beginning, what happened was my daughter came to me on Christmas break, and she asked me if she could go and stay with her mom. And we didn't go to court or nothing. We went to like a magistrate thing, and the agreement was my daughter could go stay with her mom. And if any time my daughter was failing school or anything like that, she could just come back home. We didn't have to go back to court. I still had full custody of her. It was like a trial thing. But at that time, I did not know things that happened to my kid until she died. And the fire marshal asked me to go pull medical records. And during my divorce, my children and me were told that we had to go to counseling. And my daughter in that counseling meeting was telling things that were happening. But the mother, what happened was the mother lied to my daughter, told her that the boyfriend was being kicked out of the house. She was going to get her other daughter that she didn't have custody of. And it was going to be girls living with girls and boys living with boys, because I still had my boys. And, every parent tries to do what a child asks. You try to, make your children happy. And I told her I was fine with it, and that's how it ended up happening. She was there. She moved in on January the 5th, 2006, and then she was murdered 3 months later.
So, and what do you think really happened, though? Do you think this was a boyfriend or a friend or what?
Right. What I believe that my daughter was being sexually assaulted by more than one. And later on, or another show I can, tell you guys about, there's sexual predators on both sides of the family. The mom side of the family and the boyfriend side of the family. And I believe my daughter was being sexually assaulted. But my daughter was one of these types where if I tell dad, I know what dad's going to do, and then I'm going to lose my dad. My daughter was that smart. So, but she was telling a counselor what was going on. That counselor, which is a licensed psychologist at a mental health center, literally sent referrals to children's services, and they ignored them. And I have the proof where the lady at children's services was biased. She pretty much said, I don't like men. So she ignored what was going on with my daughter. So then what I believe happened is my daughter got fed up with it. My daughter was ready to tell me. I know I had her the week before she died for spring break. And when she went back home, when she died, when I was going to the funeral, I was looking for my boys' shoes. I looked under the bed. I found a duffel bag. I pulled the duffel bag out, and there was probably 50 outfits in that duffel bag. Her shoes, she left everything there. So she was coming back, but she was sneaking things little by little every visit. And
sneaking things back to your place every visit.
Yeah, back to my house. And I think what I believe happened was she finally got fed up with it, because I believe my daughter was raped that day, because they found a small amount. And I think she was raped that day between the hours of 3 and 6:30 because of two witnesses that I talked to. Something that the law should have done. But I believe she finally blew up and said, hey, I'm going to my dad's. I'm telling my dad everything. And then the mother knew. I already had to know. I already won custody of my children. She knew she was already on supervised visits before. And she knew I'd put her in jail, and I would have. I'd have put her in jail. I'd have put him in. Well, I'd maybe put him in jail. I don't know. I probably would have beat the shit out of him. But My daughter knew that. And I think what they did was they went upstairs. I believe there was an argument over what my daughter said. And I believe the mom and my daughter got into a fight because of the previous fights before. And I believe the fire marshal, I asked him about the pictures of my daughter's bedroom. And I asked him to look for in those pictures a certain object. And he said he couldn't because her room was destroyed. There was clothes thrown everywhere. So that tells me my daughter was fighting. She was mad. And I believe they attacked her. I believe they held her down on the bed. I believe they injected her with something. I believe then she thought, Mackenzie had already gone, passed. And they called his brother-in-law, which is a deputy. He came there. He saw what was going on. And he's the one that told him, you need to set a fire. And I believe the brother came down, the one that failed the lie detector test twice. And he's been charged with another arson years prior to that, but was never found guilty of it. And I believe he set the fire, and that's where we are today.
My question to you is what is the name of this psychologist or social worker that?
Susan Wolf.
Susan Wolf. So Susan Wolf, and I'm going to tell you, this picture is not for the weak of heart, people. But Susan Wolf, I really, at this particular time here, I'm going to show this again because I have to. All right. Susan Wolf, I need you to see this picture. I want you to know that you are responsible for this little girl's death because you didn't say something, because you didn't do something. This is what we talk about all the time in this movement. If you see something, say something. This little girl could be alive today. This young little girl. And that absolutely destroys me as an advocate for children in this movement, because honestly, it's sickening and gross. If you know someone who is being sexually molested or abused, you have to say something. Have to. You don't get the right to sit back and say nothing at all. So this blood is on your hands. In my case and how I feel, this blood is on your hands. And what we do at the Far From Normal radio show is, yes, we do advocate for parents, but we advocate for children first. 100%.
But Jay, hang on a second. Isn't Susan Wolf the psychologist who actually did report it to DSS though?
Yeah, she's the one that reported it. Actually.
I will give this to DSS then. Yeah.
Okay, hang on a second, because I want to make something clear, because this is why it's important, and what you're doing is so important, Donald. And I know your daughter's dead, but look, these two little girls here in North Carolina, they're alive. They're alive. Yes. And let me just tell you, how did DSS get involved? The grandparents told, the hospital reported it to DSS, and the therapist for the little girls, because the grandparents didn't know,
right? They
contacted DSS. And let me tell you, DSS of Lee County, North Carolina, has done nothing. They said there's nothing there. There's nothing in the report. I've seen the medical reports, and it's the hymen is in the 6 o'clock position, urethra of the labia, and diagnosis of a sexual assault on these two little girls. And you know what? It's not the therapist's fault. It is DSS's failure here, and I believe it's DSS's failure in your case. This is a failure of DSS to take action.
Yep. Yeah, and Bud,
I actually
go to you next. Go ahead, Donald.
I actually when those referrals went to Children's Services, I got copies of all the referrals that were sent because I had to give my consent to send them. I didn't know what was in them, but I had to sign a paper to send them. So she did do it. She sent them. But Children's Services is the one that failed my daughter. Because they're the ones that should have went out and investigated it. And what I hate about Children's Services is, and most of the time when they get a phone call, they'll literally send a letter and say, hey, we'll be out in 7 days. We got a call on you. Because they don't want to get up, get in their car, and drive as soon as that call is made. And that gives these parents 7 days to clean up a little bit, put a little bit of groceries in the house, and threaten their children. And then as soon as they visit it, oh, well, I didn't find nothing. And then they leave, and then it goes right back to the same way again. We fail our children every day because CPS does not want to do their job.
But Donald, they do it against innocent parents. I know. I'm one of them. DSS will come in and remove a child. They will remove one that doesn't need to be removed. But when there is imminent danger, there is an exigent circumstance, they could have saved your daughter's life. They could have saved your daughter's life, and they failed your daughter. I mean, they just did. They failed.
I even have the report. Where they wrote in the report, and this is what they wrote, Children's Services wrote. This is a father trying to dig up dirt on his ex-wife to get custody. I didn't make those accusations, and I didn't follow them with Children's Services.
That's the same thing to the grandparents here. The same identical shit is what they did.
The same thing. At the same time, they said, "Oh, well, the boyfriend's a truck driver. He's always gone, so we can't ever get to talk to him and question him about this." Instead, all they had to do is go to the sheriff's office and say, "Bring his ass in. We want to talk to him," and he's ignoring it. But they don't do that. But I'll tell you another thing that's surprising too. When this investigation started on my daughter, I found where this boyfriend beat a 2-year-old in South Dakota almost to death for peeing the bed. And it was in the Children's Services report. And the investigator here in Fayette County didn't even know it existed. Because you know why? They never did a background on the boyfriend because his family was sheriff related.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bud. I know you were chomping at the bit to come in here and say some stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jay, I may have missed this, and Donald, I know you could probably answer this. What do they actually list Mackenzie's cause of death as? Did she have smoke in her lungs? Did they
homicide?
Right, but what did they say?
Homicide, 68% carbon monoxide, smoke inhalation, and house set ablaze on purpose.
Okay.
So arson.
Now, do I believe that? But do I believe that? No. And I'll tell you why I don't believe that. 68% is a lot of carbon monoxide. And in a child of 8 years old and only weigh 45 pounds, about 30% would have already killed her. So it would have never made it into her lungs, which, if you look at the autopsy report, it said her lungs were cleared, but there was smoke, a little bit of smoke in her throat area. So I question that, especially after finding out all the things I've already found out. I question it. You know, it's one of those things you got to question. Is it a true thing or not? Because the thing of it is, just like our corner, when they had her body there that morning, he said that she was cool to touch underneath her clothing, but warm everywhere else. But he never took a body temperature in that area that was cool to touch, which was her stomach, which if they'd have penetrated her stomach and got an inside body temperature by touching her kidney or one of those organs, they'd have got a time of death, and they never did. And there's a reason they never did it.
So we don't have an actual time of death, which basically means that your daughter could have possibly already been dead before the blaze took place.
Yes. And I believe that because now you go back to the mother. The mother said that night that she spoke to my daughter, told her to go to the window. We know that's a lie because on the autopsy report, they said when they opened her eyelids, her eyes were clear and blue. Everybody knows your eyes are a muscle. And as tense as that heat was, as hot as it was, her eyes were literally melted like her skin on her body did. It's slippage. So her eyes were never open. So she wasn't talking to her mother. She didn't see her mom. wasn't told to go to no window. She was in her bed, and that's where they found her, in her bed. And I mean,
yeah, when I'm looking at this, Donald, I really believe that what you're saying is absolutely 100% true, and I think it's even more true because you yourself was willing, and because they want to build a big jail in your town. They don't have the money to do these autopsies and things in your town for your daughter. So you yourself got up the money and $2,000 and slapped it down on the sheriff's desk and said, go ahead and run that test.
Yes, I actually, I went to meet with the commissioners because the question of this was, the question I went to my commissioners for was, I wanted them to tell me why, A, the sheriff is ignoring me, which we pretty much know why, but B, is I went there because I got a final result paper in the mail with some pictures I asked of my daughter. And in that thing, it said that the results came back September 23rd, 2006. Positive male semen. But the clothes were destroyed August 15th, 2006, a month before the result from the rape came back. They already destroyed the clothes. Never, ever, ever been heard of, ever. And I've talked to 100 cops, and every one of them said, no way, there is no way. I said, yeah. So before the results even came back, they're destroying evidence. You don't do that. I don't care. Bud, you ought to know this. You're in law enforcement. You don't destroy evidence a month before results come back.
Well, no, especially evidence like that. I discussed this with my wife, not just tonight. This is just so infuriating, and this is embarrassing. At the very least, the sheriff is inept in terms of procedure at all. At the very least, it's absolutely inexcusable. Go ahead.
In 6 years of them never asking about that DNA, that sheriff visited that coroner's office at least 6 other times about other cases, but never asked about Mackenzie's case.
Has anybody from an outside agency, Donald, come in and gone knee to knee with those involved with the case? An outside agency that would come and perhaps...
DCI's been involved. Everybody's been involved. Here's the problem I have in Fayette County. The sheriff is calling it an ongoing investigation. And as long as he's calling it an ongoing investigation, nobody can touch that case unless they're invited in. And he's not inviting anybody in. So that's why I took it upon myself to investigate it myself, because I don't have to be a law enforcement. I don't have to be the president of the United States. All I got to be is a father with a voice. And that's why I took it on myself. And that's the problem I'm having. I just found out recently that you can impeach a sheriff for negligence of not doing their duty, spoliation, where you destroy evidence and everything. Like I said, there was even a ladder, 10-foot wooden ladder that they collected at the crime scene, put it in their evidence. The fire marshal saw them put it in the evidence room. Now it's missing. They can't find the ladder.
Well, I can tell you too, Jay, as an ex-cop for 3 different departments, there's no excuse, and any of that, oh, we lost, it's bullshit. It's I can tell you it's a lie. There's no reason, unless you, and if you did actually lose it, you should not be carrying a gun. You shouldn't be wearing that badge. If you can't even collect evidence and properly store it and maintain that chain of custody, when it comes to a murder case, you shouldn't be even doing that job. We'll start there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's 100% correct. And I'm kind of perplexed here because, I mean, you're willing to pay for this so-called, we don't have the money, the $2,000 it takes to run this test. You're willing to pay for it out of pocket and they still won't run it. That's just ridiculous. You know,
and that's why I believe it's the boyfriend behind this, because he's the only one. I mean, I walked in, I showed them the $2,000. I held it up, made sure they knew what $2,000 look like. I laid it on the desk and I said, here it is. Take this money, go get his DNA, and let's end this game you're playing. And they all dropped their jaws, and then it was immediately change the subject. Hey, Mr. Brandon, we need your help, your voice to build a $20 million jail. I ain't giving you a dime because you couldn't even spend $1,500 to give my daughter a respectful exhumation. Instead, you dug her up, which they messed that up right off the get-go. We filmed it. They messed that up, took her to a fire station, unsanitary, and did the exhuming in a fire station, and then brought her back and buried her right back in the ground.
So my question is this the same exact fire station that that the guy was a volunteer firefighter for?
No, it was the fire department that put out the fire that night 13 years ago.
So, okay, so this is so far.
But I can tell you why that happened. Well, I can tell you why that happened. And let me explain to the people why that happened. Montgomery County came down and did the autopsy again, exhuming during the exhuming. They found DNA again. But because it wasn't done in Montgomery County, they couldn't take custody of that DNA sample. The sheriff made sure it was done at the fire station in Fayette County so that he could take custody of the DNA and then do whatever he wanted with the DNA, which we caught him in a lie because I had my wife call him because he won't talk to me, and he answered the phone and she asked about the DNA, and he said, well, I don't think they found anything during the exhuming or they would already contacted me. So the next day I called BCI and they said, that's a lie. We did find more DNA.
Holy crap. So honestly, this guy is not doing his job. He never has done his job, and honestly should never be anywhere near any case. Because quite honestly, if you're going to screw this up, something that, to me, I would think that this was pretty doggone cut and dry. You find semen.
This is a sheriff that had to make the guy that was in control of the evidence room resign because he was stealing jewelry and stuff out of the evidence room. This is the same sheriff that fired another deputy because he stole all the drug money. This is the same sheriff that one of his deputies was never served a protection order, went out, shot his wife, and then committed suicide. This is the same sheriff deputy that the highway patrol come in and reconstructed an accident and found out that the dispatcher was the cause of the accident, not the teenager. And all this stuff has happened under this sheriff during his 16 years of term.
Well, this is what I say, and it's a very, very important line from a great movie called Remember the Titans. Attitude reflects leadership. And quite frankly, if the leadership is not there, the rest of the workers are not going to be there either, honestly.
Well, Jay, I think of it like this too. Even if you're doing a profession where you're delivering whatever it is, if you didn't bring the order to the place, you'd be fired. Even jobs like that, if you had an order to do, you didn't fill it, and you just I lost all your plans, whatever, you wouldn't have that job anymore. Yeah. So again, if you have somebody in place that isn't repetitively is showing that they cannot fulfill their duties, it's time to step down. And if there's got to be some intervention if that person.
Look, guys, here's the thing that today, Karen Pettit-Materna, she's an attorney, by the way, Donald, and she helps on things, but she and I were talking about a particular case I'm not going to say anything about, but in reference to that case, we were discussing, there was a situation it was basically at a nursing home with a woman in a comatose state. And this woman became pregnant. And the reason I bring that up is because you wouldn't think a woman that's in a coma and has been for several years can just become pregnant on her own, which she didn't. But somehow, someone forced everybody associated with that entire nursing home to go take DNA samples. And they caught the guy. He worked there. So there is a way to force, there's a way to force this cat and everybody else that you think might be associated to divulge this DNA. I don't know what it is, but we could ask her and maybe put you in touch with her. But I assure you, there's a way to get this guy's stuff. And one more thing, and this is what's bugging me. It keeps ringing in my ears, that emancipation. Because if you're just now finding out about that, I know in North Carolina, and I would assume in most states, you can't just, you have to be of a certain age. There has to be a certain finding of fact as to your mental status, and there has to be a hearing on before anybody can be emancipated. So the first thing I think is, why would that show up? And what comes to mind is, the reason that would be important to emancipate is because it would eliminate many of your rights to evidence and so forth as a parent if that child was emancipated. And I'm wondering if that document or the way they worded that is being used somewhere to keep you out of what you really need to be seeing. And that's really bothering me, that an 8-year-old was emancipated.
Well,
I don't think it can be done.
I can tell you one thing. They failed there because I've got more evidence than they do.
Well, not only that, I mean, I would still think that you would still be under FERPA to be able to get the school records. And maybe she talked to some people in the school of what was going on.
They destroyed her school records. They can't find them. They were lost.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's a FERPA lawsuit waiting to happen there.
Damn.
Oh,
they lost their school records. When also the community put $11,000 in a bank account. My ex-wife went in and got the money out of the bank right after we buried my daughter, and they went to Myrtle Beach on vacation for almost a month right after we buried her. And when I went to pull the bank records, they couldn't find them either.
Has the mom come back? Because honestly, if I had taken $11,000 and went to Myrtle Beach, I don't think I'd be coming back. Honestly, I mean, because
no, she went on vacation.
She went on vacation.
They literally went on vacation. Yeah, they went on vacation right after they went on a poker run. They actually rented $1,000 condo. They actually show pictures of them sitting at the condo, drinking wine, looking at the ocean, right after my daughter's death, right after we were told that she was murdered. They literally left, went on vacation.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, after the show, we're going to be getting with Karen Petita Materna. We're going to be getting with Larry DeMarco. We're going to be getting with all of the attorneys that we know behind the scenes, because we're going to make something happen here, honestly. And if it takes anyone and everyone that we know to get involved in helping with this, because quite honestly, the reason that we brought you on the show, unfortunately, we can't do anything for your daughter. Your daughter has passed away, but we sure the hell can make sure that this never happens to another child. And that's what we're going to do.
And that's what I want. My main thing is to protect the children today. I actually made these things up that I'm going to go around the stores, and what they're called is Mackenzie Safe Spot. That's what they look like.
Great.
And they have a heart and it says spot. And this is going to be placed in businesses in their windows. So any runaways, any child that's being abused, as soon as they see this Mackenzie Safe Spot sticker with the butterflies, they'll be able to go to somebody in that store, and immediately the police will be called.
Yes, and we're going to get with we're going to get with Karen Widows. I don't know if you know her or not, but I know that she did some things as well for SB 123, which is a law for domestic violence and protection. I think really we need a law put in place that says if a child passes away, that they need to do anything and everything that they possibly can do to make sure that they check for DNA and a rape kit before they would ever go on to washing that body, period. For any reason.
Well, I know now that Montgomery County, like I said, my daughter was very strong, and she's still strong. She's still strong in spirit. Montgomery County Coroner's Office now, any victim that comes in there from a fire is actually treated as a homicide now and then accidental later. They changed some rules and some ways they handle now things in there because of Mackenzie's case. So I'm grateful for that. Because in a fire, you really don't know the answers right off the bat. And you got this body laying there, and it should be treated as a homicide. And because if my daughter would have never been washed, they might have found her hair on her. They might have found a fiber on her. And just like her clothes being destroyed, we don't know if there was more DNA in my little girl's panties. Don't know. There could have been enough in there to give them more numbers. But I can tell you right now, anybody can say what they want to say. This was a cover up from the get go. This was a case that was solved immediately, and they didn't do it. They pushed the fire marshal out of it, and they try to hide the rape. And that's another thing that I'm upset about is my news media don't even want to come and talk to me and put out there. All they want to leave it alone. They want to say, oh, it's just an arson. Child died in a fire that was rolling arson. No, you need to know the motive. You need to know the facts. She was raped, then set on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, brother. And
that makes a big difference. And that makes a big difference. Like I tried to tell the sheriff's office, you know, if you'd have told everybody in the beginning that my daughter was raped, maybe somebody saw something that day, not at 2 o'clock in the morning when everybody's in bed, getting up to go to work the next day. More witnesses were up during the time of her rape. Yeah. And if that had been told, somebody might have seen somebody in that house or leaving that house during that time.
Correct. And I'm going to say this. I know that we're out of time for this evening, but we may do a follow-up show with you, Donald, so that we can get even more information out there. I know there's going to be more coming out. And I'm going to say this. If somebody else out there is watching the show tonight and you know something else about this case, get with Donald ASAP. We need to know as much information as we possibly can. I know that you have a protest coming up, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about that, as well as where people can find you and where people can support Justice for Mackenzie.
All right. I have a protest coming up on April 27th, 2019. It's at the sheriff's office. That's where I like to protest at. They're the ones that need to tell them they need to answer my questions. So I'm doing a protest up there. It is about the rape. It is about why they destroyed my daughter's evidence before results came in. So I'll be protesting up there. I also have I bought, I don't know, probably over 1,000 jewelry that have butterflies on it and stuff because that represents my daughter that I'll be passing out to kids. The evidence, I take my evidence book with me so anybody can go up there. They can look through the evidence book that I have. I just hope that, here's the thing. I protested 6 times up there at the sheriff's office. And I can tell you right now, they don't care. Because it's usually me up on that sidewalk by myself. And that's the problem. I need more people up there with me, more people sitting up there, because that's when the media gets involved. Wow, why is there 100 people up on this sidewalk, you know, about this little girl? I want to get her story out. And that's my main thing. I do another thing where I go live on May 30th, which is her birthday. And that was also the day that I was cleared of my daughter's death, was on her birthday. I do a birthday party here. We release balloons all over the world in memory of my daughter for her birthday. That's a live feed. We have a page called Justice for Murdered Mackenzie Taylor Brenham. Once you go on that, I will accept you, and you can, everything's on there. All my live feeds. All the evidence, pictures of the evidence, photographs, everything I've been doing up until now.
Great. Well, Donald,
and then, of course, my page.
Yep. Donald, I wanted to thank you.
And, of course, my page, Donald Brenham.
Yeah. I wanted to thank you
Yeah.
again for coming on, and we greatly appreciate you. I'm sure my co-host would also like to thank you, and keep up what you're doing, because it will save somebody, and that's what we need out here. Thank you. I'll go ahead, bud.
Thank you, Jay. Brother Donald Brenham, you did your daughter proud tonight. No question about that. You said it earlier. Her spirit lives on. It absolutely does. Mackenzie was and is lucky to have you as a father, as your other children are. Proud to have had you on the show. You're the type of dad I think we should all try to emulate, someone who fights not only to the death for their children, but after that too. You're an awesome example of a parent and a father. Proud to have you on. Thank you for coming on, taking the time and sharing your story and getting that story of Mackenzie out there. I think it's important for her and for other kids out there. Thank you for your heart and honesty, Donald.
Thank you, bud. Thank you, bud. And like I said, we are friends now, and anytime you can contact me anytime, buddy.
Yeah, and Donald,
24/7.
Donald, I think you're a great parent. I think you're a good person, and I think you're a man's man. I am very glad to know you, and your strength is overwhelming. There's something that I always have everybody do on here. It's kind of fun. Jade normally tries to block me. He's what I like to call a cock blocker. So he will stop me from doing it. But see, I just got my birthday card early for some people that are here. And see, it's rev it up. So no matter whether you're Bo Duke, which is John Schneider that was on the show, he did it. I always ask everybody that's on here when they're going off to say in their most enthusiastic voice, rev it up. I need you to do that, Don.
Rev it up.
Yes, that a baby. Man, I love you, man. And thank you for coming on here. You're a
Hey, I love
man's
you too,
man.
Randy.
You take care, buddy.
I love you too, Randy. And you're on my friend. You're one of my friends now. And I watched your live earlier, and I appreciate it, man. I do from my heart, man.
All right,
I appreciate
awesome
you too, bro.
stuff. And I will tell you this right before we get off the air with you here. I had contacted all of my contacts out there in Hollywood, and I know for a fact that Danny Ziano was watching this evening. So hopefully we get in contact with you. If we can do some kind of thing to get this story out there in the mainstream media, even if we change the names to protect or whatever, the main thing is that we need to get this type of a story out there for people to know that we've got to protect children. That's our main focus. So
This is,
Yes.
Will, this
Yes.
will not be the last time we hear
Yep.
from Mr. Donald Brenham. There's no question about that.
absolutely. 100%. Thank you so much, Donald. We greatly appreciate you, and we'll let
Yeah.
you go this evening. All right.
Jay, I appreciate it. I'm glad that we're friends. And, you can follow my story. You're on Mackenzie's page. Anytime, just hit me up, man. I enjoyed it. Hey, and I thank every one of you guys. I really do from the bottom of my heart. And like I said, my daughter might be dead and gone, but she still lives within me. I'm her voice. And she knows that my job is to protect every child in this world. And I mean it. I mean, anybody that needs my help can get a hold of me too. Anybody that needs me, I'll be there. I love it. I like the battle, and I like it. And if it saves one child's life, awesome. And that's all that matters. And Randy, God bless you, buddy.
God bless you,
I
man.
appreciate it, bud. Rev it up.
Wrap it up. That a baby.
All right.
You are our
All right. Thanks a lot. We're going to go ahead and let him here. We'll remove him real quick there. All right. And
There we
wow,
go.
what a story.
Amazing.
Whew. Wow. That, like I
was
said, it was
saying,
hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying he is our kind of warrior, Money and Rev It Up.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Yeah,
Oh.
man. And we're going to go and get in real quick here because we're going to go into overtime just a little bit tonight. But we wanted to go ahead and give our shout outs as always this evening before we go ahead and let everybody go this evening. Bud Vino, go ahead and take it away, brother.
Yeah, yo. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for Donald Brenham and everybody that tuned in tonight. It was a powerful show, incredible show. We're honored to bring it to you. Thank you to everybody out there. I've got to say, Jay, to my Brick Village crew, one of the members of that, and someone who's a fan of the show and a friend of the show, family of the show, John Mondu, and his wife welcomed in their first grandchild last night, a baby boy. So we congratulate the entire Mondu clan. And John, as I said to him off the air, man, I feel old. He's a grandfather already, so it's good. I get the ribbon. So congratulations to the Mondus out there. I love you, John. John's a great friend. Everybody out there, Ryan Brochu, Daddy's Fight. I see Ryan continuing to push forward. Everybody out there, my co-hosts, Jay Money Moss and Rev It Up Randy Davis. Thank you so much. The staff working behind the scenes. My beautiful wife, Allison, I thank her so much. She does so much behind the scenes for me. My biggest, bestest Carter, my littlest, bestest buddy, Mason. Love you. Looking forward to spending some time together tonight. Everybody out there that is down and out, you are down, but you are not out. It's not over until you say it's over. Money Moss, and I ain't heard no bell. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you sure ain't. I got my sound effects all messed up this evening, so he's gonna get the wolf this evening. Go ahead, brother.
Man, I tell y'all what, I didn't want to do this one. I really didn't. I sent y'all a message. I really didn't. I don't think, as far as shout outs, I don't really have a shout out except to Donald. And I got to tell you, this one is hurtful and painful as anything I've ever heard. And it was like studying up for it. It's like you're there. You're really seeing it. And all I could keep seeing is Cheyenne and Cheyenne on fire, or Cheyenne being tortured and then burned to death, or beaten to death and then burned to cover it up after she's been raped. And I can tell you, this is so painful because you're hurting and you're angry and you don't know what to do. And this man is way more of a man than I am. I don't know how certain people handle it. I guess the thing to take away from tonight is this. I know that I get calls all the time and people say, you know, I didn't get my visit. I didn't get my visit, or I only got every other week 1 hour supervised at DSS or whatever. But you know what? Whenever you're in the situation that Donald is with his daughter, that's when you no longer have hope of seeing your child again. That's when you give up the hope of seeing her in this world again. So some of you should take that and understand. I'm not saying be happy with the situation as it is, but be content and enjoy, especially those you have your children with you all the time. But even if you're getting to see them some and it's improving, take that and think about Donald. Think about what he's going through and how right now, do you think he would grumble if he could see his daughter for an hour under the microscope or under cameras or whatever? For God's sake, this is an awful thing. And I think the biggest thing that came out of it, his daughter's dead. She's gone. She's gone. But his story may help the twins in Lee County that are being abused right now, guarantee it. But more importantly, this is pointing out a huge thing for me, and that is the failure of DSS. Look, he doesn't even realize how big a deal that is to us here, because he doesn't know, because he tried to get him involved. His daughter, now, bless her heart, she's dead. She tried, the therapist tried, and DSS has failed. And as far as I'm concerned, DSS may have well set her on fire themselves. That's the thing that I take away from it. So I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad I'm here. But this one's been tough on Rev It Up.
And quickly, Jay,
go ahead.
Yeah, and quickly before we go, you know, these are tough. I give you a lot of credit too, because I know it's been difficult for a lot of us behind the scenes in it. But I think it's one of those things where, as hard as it is, that's what we do. You can't, again, fix what you don't acknowledge, right? So again, these are the type of things, as hard as they are, that's how we fix them and stop them from happening in the future, as we bring light to them, as tough as they are. So I thank you guys for coming on and sharing the show tonight and being on with me, and to Donald again. Incredible. Yeah,
100%. And I'll agree with Randy as well. And we were talking before the show, And honestly, I'll show this. I showed a picture to Donald of my daughter, and all I could think at the very first of when we were about ready to do this was about my daughter. 8 years old. Can you imagine that? 8 years old. And there's nothing that I would not give to see my daughter. And I'm telling you right now, you've got Donald out there. He will never see his daughter again. And I'm sure there's nothing he would not do for 1 minute with his daughter. So I want you guys to keep that in mind each and every time you say, hey, I got to go to a court supervised visit. Well, so what? Do it. Do it. It's important to your daughter. It's important to your son. Make it happen. Make it happen. Make the plan to do this.
Absolutely. You don't stop fighting until there's no fight left.
That's right. 100%. And that's why we're behind Donald in everything that he's doing, and especially protesting that damn freaking jail that they're building in that town. How dare you build a jail in a town and spend all of this taxpayers' money when you could not exhume his daughter? How dare you? When it's people out there that are needing to be protected by the laws that you have in place, and you would rather use them to build a big, huge sanctuary in the sky to block people up who might be behind on child support. Let's throw them in jail. Might smoke weed. Let's throw him in jail. How dare you? How dare you? And honestly, DSS, and there's nothing that I can say. Nothing I can say for you guys. But in these, in these shout outs tonight, I want to thank our team. I want to thank Chris for sure. Chris brought us this story, worked very, very, very hard to bring us this story, and we greatly appreciate it. Maria, Cheyenne, Melissa, McDonald, Dana. Dana is still sick out there, people. So Dana and Jacqueline actually still sick. Keep them in your thoughts and prayers, what they're going through right now. And I want to thank my co-hosts, Bud Vino and Randy Davis, and the occasional drop in here by the president, Mr. Neil Shelton. But he's working on a lot of things behind the scenes. He'll be in and out. But he will be back with us. And I'll tell you this, there are no other 3 guys that I would rather be on the air with than these 3 guys who have the heart and the determination and the power to make everything possible. And it's going to happen, folks, is we're going to get out there and we're going to do what needs to be done so that we can address these particular type of stories. Even though they're hard, these particular types of stories are the one that we want to get out to you. And that's so particularly important. I got a lot of stuff going on here on my computer behind the scenes, but and we want to say this: if you have a story that's out there that you want us to get out, we would love to get those stories out there. All right, so please contact us at the Far From Normal Radio Show, and please contact us at our blog site, actually, the Future of Our Children's Radio, or excuse me, the Future of Our Children's Video Network blog site. We want to get these types of stories out there so that we can change the world, so we can make the future a better place for our children. That's why we do what we do each and every single week. And if you'd like to help us do that, you'd like to be a part of a team that is getting those things done, please contact us. We would love to have you on our staff. We'd love to work with you. We do have a PayPal also set up if you'd like to contribute to what we do. All of that goes directly to our Zoom broadcast each and every single week. So thank you for those who have contributed. Those who will, thank you also very, very much. We will be back with you next week. But as we always say in signing off on the Far From Normal Radio Show, you are important, you are loved, and you are cared about. God bless and good night, folks.
Good night.
Night, guys. Thank you.
Can you hear the wind that's howling through the concrete trees? Got you praying on your knees. In the face of danger we're all brave, till the gun goes bang, bang, bang. It's a cruel, cruel world. No mercy left, yeah, it's a cruel, cruel world. It'll break your heart and burn you down, down, down. Don't ever doubt that it's a cruel, cruel world. Oh, it's a cruel, cruel world. Smoke will turn your soul to black if you let it in. So close the door, confess your sins. Oh, when I was younger, it was all roses. Now they're dead and gone away. It's a cruel, cruel world. No mercy left, yeah, it's a cruel, cruel world. It'll break your heart and burn you down, down, down. Don't ever doubt that it's a cruel, cruel world. Oh, it's a cruel, cruel world. Oh, can you help me? Oh, can you help me out? Don't know who I can trust right now. Oh, can you help me? Oh, can you help me out? Oh, it's a cruel, cruel world. It's a cruel,